With every day that James Gunn's Superman stays out longer, I'm coming to a more critical view of Zack Snyder's Superman, and I'm starting to discover something that I did not notice maybe as or I ignored quite a bit of, but the signs were clearly there. People never really understood what Superman is meant to represent. They don't understand what he's meant to represent as a character. And in all honesty, it brought me to a consensus essentially where Zack Snyder's Superman and DCU in essence did more harm than good to the brand of DC as a whole, and it basically butchered the character of Superman. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be going in depth on one of the biggest controversial topics that's going on right now due to the release of James Gunn's Superman, and that's a comparison of James Gunn's Superman and Zack Snyder's Superman. But we're not going to be doing what most people are doing, it, which is comparing their power levels. Maybe we'll do that later on. But right now, we're just going to be comparing the characters and how well they represent what Superman should be, how well they portray the character of Superman, essentially. But and how well they showcase Superman as a savior, symbol of hope, and all that. Let's break it down. Before we go into any of that, we're gonna have to first discuss Superman's core traits and values. What Superman is meant to represent, essentially. At his core, Superman is a character who sorry, Superman is a character who is rooted in empathy, compassion, and an overwhelming belief in the value of preservation of all life. He's not just someone who comes in and stops the bad guys, throws a few punches. Nah, he's someone who's here to protect first before even throwing a punch. He's here to see how many lives he can save before he's forced to use his fists. That's something that I've always seen as important with the character of Superman. And that's why the animated series, Justice League Unlimited, all those versions of Superman, even down to Christopher Reeve's Superman, he's someone who will save a cat from a tree. He's someone who will save a person from a burning building. He's not just someone who only comes when it's big things happening. No, he's there for the little people too. He's there for the little things too. And that's why there's always these scenes you see in some Superman films or games where you see him basically just um posted up, let's say maybe in this like stratosphere, and he's just listening to everything going on around the world. And to me, what that basically portrays is that he's listening. No matter how big your problem is, no matter how small your problem is, he's gonna try to help you. He always spreads himself thin. And that's why I can't remember what comic it was, but I know there was a comic where the Justice League basically decided they were gonna give Superman a day off. I don't and I know he still ended up having to come in and help that same week, but they basically saw that this guy was stretching himself too thin. Now, that's basically what the character of Superman represents to me. Someone who is a symbol of hope, he'll never go back on his morals or values that were instilled in him, which is to do good, to protect, and if possible, solve the problem without even having to throw a fist in the first place. That's just Superman to me, and that's what the character is that I've seen in comics in general. That's what DC portrays the character as in the comics, in the animated series, in most forms of media, even in the TV shows. Now, what was the issue? What's the issue that's causing this problem? You have Zack Snyder's Superman, Man of Steel, and I'm not knocking Man of Steel as a movie on its own. I'm not knocking Henry Cavill as an actor. I like Henry Cavill as Superman. I was always hoping he'd come back. It didn't work out. It's fine. It's understandable. I also liked Man of Steel, but I like Man of Steel as a superhero movie. Not even really, maybe not a superhero. I like Man of Steel more as an action movie. I saw Man of Steel very close to the same vein as something like Hancock or Chronicle. You could say it's superhero, but it's more superhero adjacent. Like there are superpowers involved, but I don't know if you'd call it a superhero movie because no one there was really being full on heroic in what they were doing. Let's be honest. Clark was not getting involved in like Clark's father basically instilled in him the idea to just and that's something that I feel they also butchered the character of Pa Kent. He told Clark to let people die in some situations, to let him die even, like just because he felt he wasn't ready. Come on, Clark Kent would never do that, man. But yeah, Man of Steel. That's why I keep saying I see it as a very good action movie, a very good maybe superhero adjacent movie, kind of like Hancock, but not a good Superman movie. That's just my opinion. Now let's get into some of the things that Zack Snyder Superman did over the course of his whole run, essentially from Man of Steel all the way down to Justice League, Zack Snyder's one. Because I'm also going to add in Justice League. That's the one that was directed by Joss Whedon, even though it wasn't a Zack Snyder movie. But I'm gonna, because he did do a lot of saving. Let's be honest. It's not like he didn't save people. Let's be honest. He saved the oil rig workers in Man of Steel, showing early heroism. I guess you could count the fact that he surrendered himself to Zod. He killed Zod only really because he felt he needed to do that to save those people, and he even showed the conflict in the fact that he screamed. I don't know if I call that heroism, but it shows he has a conscience, I guess. Let's look at Batman v Superman. It showed a montage of him saving people, like the floodings where he came down saving people from up. It also showed him pulling the ship. I'll have most of these clips in the background, obviously. Him pulling that ship, that freight ship, I think. It had quite a few scenes. The rocket scene where he saved someone. Now, all of these scenes basically show his heroism, essentially. Just the theatrical cut, that was Joss Whedon. He also saved some civilians alongside the Flash, obviously there. Now, in Zack Snyder's Justice League, he didn't do any of that. He didn't really save anybody, but he did have a few saves. But the thing is, the issue with Zack Snyder's Superman is he doesn't feel like he cares. He doesn't feel like he's doing these saves because he actually cares about the people he's saving. That's the issue with it. Doesn't feel like, it feels more like a chore, sorry, when you see him doing it. He's too detached, and Superman is not meant to be detached from the people he's saving. Superman is meant to, yes, he's a godlike being and all, but Zack Snyder, I feel, tilted too deep into that godlike aspect. That aspect of just portraying him as a god, where he's so detached from humanity. The thing is, if you portray him that highly in the eyes of humanity, in my opinion, I don't really then see much reason as to why Lex Luthor shouldn't hate him, honestly. Because it never felt like he was doing anything because he wanted to do it, if I'm being very honest. Okay, look at the flood scene where he was saving people. He was portrayed as a god. He was more or less just portrayed as a mythological being, a savior from the stars, but not really someone who is approachable, essentially. Yes, that's the best way to put it. Because Superman is someone who should be approachable. He's someone who, even in the comics, has a lot of people that he saved and they end up being his friends. There's Bilbo Baggins, there's in Superman Legacy, I guess there was the Malik dude. There are a lot of people that he's met just through saving them and he's become friends with them over time. Superman in the comics has basically persuaded a girl to not commit suicide. I don't know if I could ever say I would see Man of Steel, like Henry Cavill Superman, doing something like that. He didn't seem like he had empathy. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. He doesn't seem like he has that empathy to help people in him. Yeah. So that's all the saves he really made, honestly. The big ones, I guess. Even the Joss Whedon save, I counted it, but it's more or less. It just feels like Joss Whedon was trying to save the character of Superman, and that's why he forced in those things. Because Joss Whedon was also the one who had him say that line of "I'm a fan of truth, and I believe in truth, and I'm also a big fan of justice." He was more or less trying to portray Superman in what his comic book counterpart should be, but it didn't work out because you've never shown him behaving like this before prior. So it just feels like the words are hollow coming from him. Honestly, it doesn't feel like he really means any of what he's saying. I'm sorry. Now, let's get into David Cornswet Superman because there's not that much to cover compared to Zack Snyder Superman. There is still a bit, but um, there is it's just one movie, honestly. So it's a lot easier to cover it. Now, David Cornswet Superman. Once you start the film off, now once you start Superman Legacy, you have the scene of him saving people. Even you have, okay, before we even get to the kaiju, you have the scene of where he loses the second time to Ultraman, and that Malik dude comes out and picks him up. That already shows that he's not detached from the people. The people see him as one of them, essentially. He's just the person who has power to help people, and and he basically motivates them to be better. And that's what Superman should feel like. Yes, you're not gonna go fighting Zod or Darkseid or anything the way he would probably, but you're motivated to be better every single day because you know someone like Superman is out there doing the best he can, trying to help everyone and trying to make sure you guys are safe. That's just the thing. Now, if you go to the and everybody harkens to it, the kaiju scene, where two things to note from that scene. One, he was trying to stop the kaiju, but in the same way, he was protecting as much life as he could while he was doing that. He saved, I think, two or three people from the kaiju. That is, I mean, that were directly affected by the kaiju. Like, okay, there's the little girl that he blocked those pipes from hitting her with his back. That's clearly seen in the trailer. He saved the woman from being, I think, stepped on by the kaiju. Uh, he saved a cat. No, he saved a dog. Sorry, he saved the dog in the movie. He saved a squirrel, and yes, people keep making fun of the squirrel. Why do you feel Superman? I'll drop a few comments from chats that I've had with some people who's Zack Snyder zealots essentially, and they're basically complaining as to the fact that why is he saving squirrels, dogs, or I'm like, and I look at it and I'm like, this just tells me that a lot of Snyder fans don't actually know what the comics are like. They don't care about the character itself. They just care about what Zack Snyder gives. Because you'll see it again at the back. One of the complaints these guys had is that Henry Cavill's Superman has aura. This guy doesn't have aura. I'm like, what makes you think Superman is just meant to have aura? Like, what makes you think he's just meant to aura farm? I complained even on the group where I complained about the fact that Henry Cavill's Superman should have been able to save the people in the courthouse, which I still stand on. I feel he should have been able to do that. And I also have this in the background. Henry Cavill's Superman didn't save the people in the courthouse. Yet Billy Butcher, hmm, who is sorry, Homelander, who is slower than Superman, even Henry Cavill's Superman. Let's be honest. Uh, Homelander was able to save Billy Butcher even when Billy Butcher detonated the bomb. The bomb was still in Butcher's hand, the detonator for it, and Homelander saved Butcher and saved Stillwell's child. Come on, man. He could have saved the people in the courthouse. Rather, it blew up. He came out basically still aura farming. Like, that's why they're calling him Aura Man now on Twitter. In my opinion, Zack Snyder prioritized the godly aspect of Superman too much, and it made people feel so distant. Now, it made for very good edits and all that, and that's all the Snyder fans really care about. A lot of them, in my opinion, just the fact that Superman kept aura farming. But that is not what Superman is meant to represent. That's not what he's meant to represent. He's not meant to just be clips of him standing above it. Like, there were so many scenes where he could have. That whole Man of Steel fight was a spectacle to watch. It was one of the best superhero fights I've ever seen. But again, I hearken it to a superhero adjacent movie or a Hancock type movie or Invincible type movie where casualties are a normal there. It's not bothered. Yes, Mark will try to save people, but if he's fighting someone stronger than him, there's not really much he can do about it. Superman, on the other hand, wouldn't even let things get that far. Superman would take shit immediately after either off world or at least to a place that is deserted. That's the character of Superman. That's just what Superman would do. And it just makes you think, like I said, I feel like Zack Snyder has done nearly irreparable damage to the brand and character of Superman, honestly. Looking at Superman legacy, like I said, he saved multiple people laughing, smiling. Even the kaiju, he didn't even want to kill the kaiju. He wanted to take it to an intergalactic wildlife reserve. I guess maybe they have those, and he knows one. Uh, Unfortunately, Justice Gang killed it, and he was disappointed by the fact that they killed it. And in my opinion, that is what Superman is meant to represent. He's meant to be warm. He's meant to be empathetic. He's meant to be compassionate. He's meant to care about life. He's meant to value the life of other creatures. And I'm sorry if this offends Snyder fans, but he's not just meant to aura farm and mew throughout everything he's doing. He's not meant to be detached from humanity, man. Because if he's detached from humanity, what did Park Kent and Mark Kent even teach him while he was there with them, honestly? What values did he gain? It didn't feel like Snyder Superman even gained any real moral values from his parents, honestly. Because it felt like him saving people and doing what he was doing was more like a chore for him, honestly. It just felt like something where it was basically a job. He didn't really care. It was visually stunning. It was visually stunning and maybe morally complex because he's a deeper character if you look at the way in which he behaved. But he's emotionally distant. He does not feel like Superman. David Cornswet's Superman felt more like Superman. And I keep saying it. Someone on that group chat told me that they liked Christopher Reeve's Superman. And I'm like, Christopher Reeve's Superman is nothing like the Superman you saw in Man of Steel. If anything, Christopher Reeve's Superman has zero aura. I'm sorry. If that's what you want to see. But he saved people every chance he could get. Corenswet Superman is much closer to Christopher Reeve's Superman than Man of Steel Superman would ever be. I'm sorry. It's not, and it's not that Snyder Superman maybe doesn't care. It's just that maybe he doesn't know how to show it, or maybe he just doesn't. He's maybe been made too distant in the writing in which was given to him, that it doesn't seem like he does. Because I feel, again, Henry Cavill can deliver a good Superman. I just feel he was never given the right material to work with. And I'm sorry, that's just one thing that we'll always have to look back on. The writing was no good for him, and that's just how it is. I do, like I said, because this was supposed to be a comparison between the both of them, but it ended up just being me slandering Zack Snyder Superman. Even though I do like Zack Snyder Superman, but I like him for what he is. It looks more like a case study, and it felt more like it was meant to be an injustice type Superman or something in that vein, an evil Superman. And I'm fine with those. But in my opinion, you shouldn't make that your main line Superman. Because that's not what it's meant to be, honestly. That's not what Superman is meant to be. Yeah, that was my thoughts on this topic. I feel Corenswet is a better representation of what Superman should be, the values Superman has. You can say that's cheesy and that's corny and it's cartoonish and it's childish, but that's what Superman should be. He's not meant to be overly dark or grounded or gritty. That's Batman. If you want that, you go read a Batman comic, you go watch a Batman movie. Because that's another thing. It's meant to be a situation where Superman is more fantastical, more empathetic, more caring, so that when he meets Batman, their two tones can easily clash. Well, not easily, but there's a huge tone clash that's always there because of they're both from separate worlds, essentially. And in the Snyderverse, he just felt like Superman was a Batman with powers because they were both grounded, gritty. In some instances, maybe even felt to an extent like Batman cared more than Superman. It did feel like Batman cared more than Superman, because the whole reason why Batman wanted to kill Superman in BVS was because he felt this guy was a danger, and he witnessed firsthand the horror that was the fight of Man of Steel from the perspective of any normal human being. So it did even feel like Zack Snyder's Batman was more empathetic than Superman, and was more compassionate than Superman. And I'm not saying Batman is not compassionate in general, but Superman is clearly the one that's meant to have a bigger heart, be more of a softie compared to Batman. And that's part of where I felt Zack Snyder went wrong with that. That's just how I felt he went wrong with that, because he didn't approach the characters the way he was meant to. Yeah, that's my video on that. Let me know in the comments which version of Superman you connect with more and you feel maybe, well, the Snyderverse is done, but if you were still wanted that to keep going, let me know in the comments. Do you prefer the more mythic, godlike figure that Zack Snyder brought to the table, or the more down-to-earth hero with the big heart that James Gunn clearly showed us in a Superman Legacy? If you like this breakdown, again, like, subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a notification. We've got more deep dives coming. Until then, stay heroic.